Hey guys, Greg and Ryan here, back for another breakdown. Today we are doing episode 6 of Double Feature. It is called Winter Kills.
Now, spoiler warning, what are you doing here if you haven't seen this episode yet? Get out of here, go watch it, and then come on back here. Let's break it down.
Greg, I must say this episode left me wanting a little bit more. It's one of the shortest episodes of American Horror Story ever. I think it ties with a few others from past seasons at like just under 40 minutes. And there was a lot that had to kind of wrap up in order to wrap up the season. But like, it was one of the most over-the-top, ridiculous episodes of American Horror Story that we've ever seen. And that's saying a lot for this show. And the weird thing was, the title Winter Kills. I don't know if I immediately searched the IMDb Winter Kills, and then I saw a photo of Billy Lord as Lark in this season. And I was like, what is Winter Anderson gonna pop up in this episode? I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, I know they love to do connections of other seasons, but I'm like, there's no way there's a direct cult reference or tie-in with this season, unless they were visiting Provincetown. I don't know.
Pure coincidence there. At this point, there's so many seasons that it's going to be a coincidence this pops up. Because I thought the same thing. My mind went to winter for whatever reason. But as we already know, this was a very weather-dependent season. So here it ends with Winter Kills. This is it. When Dennis O'Hare, who plays Holden, tells the audience basically, look, in the winter, everybody dies who just shows up in this town, but we clean it up. And we're going to have it all, nice and clean and ready for the summer.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where just like you kind of just pay no mind to it while it's the winter time, while it's off season, and then they obviously want the tourists to come back in the summer, so it's like, okay guys, this is just status quo. They're not killing anyone important. That didn't happen this last season. Obviously, they killed the police chief, but like normal seasons they would just like let people die. Apparently, this council is like the most horrible council ever of any town. But basically, all they care about is the money that comes in during the summer and then kind of leave us to our own devices during the winter time. People are going to be artists with their pills and start killing people, but don't worry, they're not killing important people.
Pails go into the woods in the summer, so no worries.
Now, also this intro, Greg, finally it kind of wrapped up the Chief Burleson storyline, right? We were wondering, like, what's going to happen? Like, there's a dead police chief and no one said anything. Like, there's got to be more kind of, people kind of looking in on Provincetown and saying, hey, what are all these dead bodies popping up, especially when it's someone in law enforcement. So we get a fisherman, runs into the body of Chief Burleson in the ocean. I don't know the chances of running into one body in the middle of the ocean and it's her. I don't. That's just crazy. But
I feel like the sharks or something would get them. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's funny when we get back to the scene with the council, the town council. The reference of the sharks is a pretty fun little like we talked about Jaws before when we talked about the season, but it was a fun little anecdote about like maybe the sharks are just doing all this and it's no one else. It's nothing menacing. There's no they're downplaying everything that's really been going on and all the connections one could make with all the murder. But the funny thing is that like this council and everyone on it, Holden specifically, they're kind of like the mayor in Jaws, like just kind of like turns the other way. Always just focused on the money, the tourism, the status quo, keeping things the same and not really changing it up and not letting anyone come in and kind of, clean things up.
So then Trooper Jan Remy shows up in town. Also, Glee shout out right there. For Glee fans out there, we get another cameo in the AHS world. Now, this cameo is short-lived because the Trooper immediately shows up and then leaves. And that is the last we hear from her again.
Yeah, Holden has this very, very menacing and sinister like reaction. Basically, like, I'll take care of it, like, don't worry. That the Trooper is not going to be able to clean up the place. We never see the Trooper again. Basically that like he will fix the problem of all these bodies popping up. And that comes down to taking care of the Gardner family, which, Harry and Alma are not kind of, they're kind of newcomers to this, right? So like they don't follow the rules like the others. I mean, first of all, you don't give the pills to a little child who cannot be controlled. That's the first thing that, they messed up doing. So basically they got to get rid of them.
It's been 5 years, and now it's finally come undone because of, they gave the pill to a child. At least that's what they're chalking it up to at this point. So they have to come up with a plan, and I love the line from Holden here on Burger King.
I stopped Burger King from opening in this town. I can stop you, too.
Now, back in the Gardner family, this is another amazing scene with Ursula. Leslie Grossman is just on fire this entire episode, this entire season that we've seen her. But Harry's basically written his masterpiece. We haven't heard, we don't know what that sounds like. We don't know what his work actually sounds like. All we know is kind of like Belle, her writing. We've heard her reading from her book. We've heard her, she reads a letter later on in this. But Harry, we don't really get to a sampling of how good he is.
All we know
numerous times.
Yeah, all we know is every director in Hollywood essentially wants to work with him.
He's like at a point where he's like, okay, I'm done with these pills. I've come to my senses. Like, this is the very selfish viewpoint, but like he's like, I've created my masterpiece. Okay, the family's done. Alma, you're done. I'm done. And at this point, like, as soon as he's using some common sense and some smarts, that it's not going to end well for him. That he's kind of come to his senses, and it's a little bit too late because he already opened up this can of worms that it's gonna end in his death. But you don't know exactly how.
Now, somehow, don't know how, apparently Eli was kidnapped. This is like a Ghostbusters 2 thing or something. I don't know what happened, but that baby's gone now. Ursula did a horrible job taking care of the kid. Now, Belle leaves a note. Frances Conroy, again, that scene where she's reading that note is just good stuff. So, of course, Harry realizes this is a trap, obviously, and probably none of them are going to make it out of this alive if they go get Eli. So we get this weird conversation between everyone deciding whether or not, do we need to go save this baby or not?
Alma is evil as hell, Greg, in this whole section. We already knew that, right? We already knew that she's just like a devil child.
Of course.
But she is just like cutthroat when it comes to like her true feelings for family members. We already know about her mom. But even like how she turns on Ursula here, and it's all pretty much, as we learn later, probably an act because her and Ursula in on this whole master plan. But they eventually decide to go to the house while Ursula has her own kind of idea of what to do. So she goes to the cemetery and wants to enlist the help of the Pale People with some special different pills that kind of turn the Pale People against everyone, not just talented people who have taken the pill and normal people. Like, this pill is basically like a bad pill. Didn't pass through FDA protocols, and and this one is going to change them and have them basically turn against Belle and Austin.
Now, Ursula does drop a few Hollywood did-you-knows in here, one of which is, of course, Lawrence Fishburne turned down the role of Jules in Pulp Fiction. That's true.
Yeah, that's actually a true thing. I knew about that. I heard about that before, and apparently, like in an interview with Vulture, Fishburne said that he said no to the role because he felt it glamorized heroin use, and he didn't want to be a part of it. Now, years later, he gets the Matrix gig, and apparently that role as Morpheus, it all worked out for him. And that role for Morpheus was I think Sam Jackson was actually up for that role as well, and he got that one. So it all worked out for all these guys. But it's a fun, when they add like these real life Hollywood anecdotes or details that they kind of throw in here. That one is actually true. Sometimes we get like some fake stuff that AHS does, but this one's a good one.
So from there, the gang all gets together minus Ursula, and this is where we have our like Scooby-Doo moment where everyone's talking for a minute. They're setting the stage for what's going to happen next. And before Belle can sink her teeth into little baby Eli, that's when Ursula blitzes and she calls in the Pales to attack everyone in the room. This is kind of like, I feel like the birds. The birds are attacking now. The whole room's going into chaos, and Austin and Belle are the first ones to go, sadly. It's been a fun ride, and now it's over for both of them. And of course, we get the end of Harry. Did you expect to see Doris pop through that door as like the last person, the last Pales, and then she would take out Harry? But then, of course, who kills Doris? It's a weird thing. So I guess maybe that idea was never brought up because of that.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. To make a good point about Doris. I thought Doris would pop up at some point if Ursula is going to recruit all the Pales in the cemetery. That's the last place we saw Doris. I thought that Doris would be there to kind of confront her family, and I thought that'd be more of like an emotional payoff there with like the mother and wife, like back together with them, and her Eli there as well, and kind of like something has to go down between these parties. But it was kind of weird that they just kind of totally forgot about her and didn't include her at all. But then you get the next best thing, which is Alma delivering that fatal blow to her dad, because she was not going to. She's uncontrollable. Like no parental figure can control her. I mean, if I was a chemist, I would watch my back too. Ursula, watch your back. Like in years later, who knows what's gonna happen?
Do you mind? I don't like people watching me while I eat.
You could see the direction they were gonna go, that Harry would die in that house and not make it out alive because of, you know, how he wanted to control the situation moving forward. And we find out that Ursula, the chemist, and Alma were all in on some big mastermind plan that they had way earlier. So they kind of set all these dominoes, these things in motion in order to get everyone in the same house and kind of wipe them all clean, and then frame Harry for, you know, the murder. Basically, you know, he's this burnt out Hollywood writer that's trying to, you know, save his career, and he ends up just like on a murder spree on all these pale people that are breaking into the house. So I don't know how believable, if that trooper walks in there and sees this, the law enforcement walks in, like, how are they going to believe that story? I don't know.
Because it's American Horror Story, and the cops have believed it in the past. That's why.
True.
Now, one thing to keep in mind, everyone, especially when we jump into Death Valley Part 2, is that this season, all of this has been shot during a pandemic, all right? A once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. So the questions we had about Doris not showing up in the other scene, well, Lily Rabe, if you don't have to have her in the scene, and if you don't have to get all these actors in the same place, then don't do it. It just felt like if they didn't need her, so it just makes if it's more convoluted sometimes for the script, or if you don't need to do it, I guess that's why they don't do it. So the same thing with Macaulay Culkin, Sarah Paulson. Final scene, they died. That's it. That's a wrap on them. We don't have to go back. And I can just see the whole thing with Lily Rabe. Immediately, I thought, oh yeah, COVID. Probably not. They don't need to do this scene when we can have Alma, because it also makes, you know, sense for that character as well to be the one to take out Harry. So I get where they're coming from, and I'm trying to make sure to keep in mind, even as this season, as it looked like a few times they take those characters and they're like, let's take that motivation and notch it up just a little bit more for the finale, and it works because, again, you're dealing with a pandemic. Let's just get this over with. But I think overall the story itself was great. Some of the scenes, bonkers, but I love the story.
Then, Greg, we get another time jump 3 months later in Hollywood. The gang goes to Hollywood, the chemist, Alma, and Ursula. Of course, they got to go to Hollywood because Ursula's a Hollywood agent. They got to make some money, you know. They kind of have a new focus going to Hollywood, and apparently now they're handing out pills to anyone trying to get a gig, trying to make some, you know, their talent. They're looking for talent, and they are just handing out. Ursula's handing them out at Starbucks. I mean, what are you doing here? But the chemist, living like life is good for them, right? I mean, Provincetown in the winter, and then just come to Hollywood and living in a mansion. I mean, this is incredible. While Ursula's handing out pills to people in Starbucks, the chemist, she's doing a little bit better job weeding out the horrible racist cops in the LAPD. All across Hollywood, we see these cops basically turning into these bloodsuckers and then getting murdered. That's her vigilante way of justice to get them out of the force. And it's a lot, Greg. It's a lot.
No comment. Now, the chemist warns Ursula about these pills, not to just give it to anybody in the city. And of course, Ursula's like, yeah, whatever, and she walks right out the door. And Alma, she's just more concerned about her career, so of course, where does this episode end with her? Or at least it kind of ends with her. I don't know if we got it right, but we said that this season would end with her at either in front of Carnegie Hall or something, performing in front of a mass audience. But I'm assuming I'm going to chalk that up to COVID here and say that that's why that you didn't get a huge room of people or even try to do any CG.
So when it comes to Alma, yeah, you're right. She is trying out for the LA Philharmonic, and it's basically down to her and one other person to get that one spot. And you know exactly what's going to happen as soon as you see them in the room, and they're basically, you know, they went through the whole process of interviewing and performing, and you know, they're both standouts. They're both obviously probably two of the best. But Alma literally says, "No, I'm the best violinist in the world. You can't stop me." He takes a little cigarette break. Of course, he is eaten, bit through the neck. Alma did it, but, you know, there's no evidence of her doing it.
Yeah. Hey, it's we saw that coming because again, Rory's R.I.P. Rory. He told her, he broke it down to her. He told her what's going to happen, how they're not going to pick her because of the egos involved here in Hollywood itself, and just how the system works for anything. And of course, I like the way they're like, well, not this time, and and then now he's gone. He's gone from the story, and it looks like Alma got the gig because she's the only one. I'm assuming she has it now.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely right. There's no chance that she didn't get that. I could see like at some point in American Horror Story, we get a reference to like how good she became like years later, like decades later.
We'll get
like
an album
the best
cover
ever.
or something. Yeah,
exactly,
with Yo-Yo Ma.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, Greg, two things that we caught when we were watching this with Rory and Alma going back and forth: the freak show references. There was a direct freak show reference and the bearded lady reference. Obviously, in the American Horror Story universe, those are two big things. Shout out to Kathy Bates for bearded lady. And I was like, I love it when they just drop a little Easter egg in there, but it kind of doesn't really have anything to do with the season. But it's like a good little funny little wink.
It becomes a freak show. You're the bearded fucking lady, kid.
Now we move to a writing seminar. Just because of the professor, I got huge adaptation vibes. So Ursula is the guest speaker, and immediately I'm thinking Oprah. She's just gonna, everyone gets a car, everyone gets a pill, and that's what she does. Look under your seat, you got a surprise. Well, at this point, chaos reigns.
She just was told to kind of reel it in and not just like hand anyone this pill. And she's immediately going, like having seminars and just like literally sticking it under everyone's seat. I mean, what did you think's gonna happen? It all goes nuts from here on out, and she's totally demeaning to everyone else who's kind of not on board with her, what she thinks. Like, this is how there's blood, sweat, and tears in order to get success. You got to sacrifice things. This is the fast track to that. She's trying to like create her own little cult of people that basically she can make money off of. And then we get a shot outside of the chemist in her Rolls Royce with baby Eli in the back seat, kind of just watching mass hysteria and this outbreak in the streets of Hollywood, kind of taking down Hollywood.
Again, felt like a little bit of the Birds, Frankenstein, where the chaos ensues towards the end. Our crowd goes nuts. They were left with a burned down village, and our final characters leave. Our Dr. Frankenstein's out of here. I dig it. Again, this is one of those, the season came along because, again, we're in a pandemic, and this is one of those stories where you needed a monster story, and it worked. I thought because of you didn't have so much going on compared to other seasons that they were able to just really, focus in. There's a few things that maybe, could have been a little different if it wasn't for the pandemic, but overall, I'm enjoying this season. I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah, it was a fun little commentary at the end there about, the creatives, the writers, the success, and what goes into it, and what you have to sacrifice, and obviously this is a very, very dramatized version of all that, but like, all of the kind of fallout of going into that direction and having a one-track mind to success, the narcissism that's involved in some of this, the ego, and the pain and pleasure that comes with all of it. So it was a fun little wrap-up of how you see just everything falling apart and kind of the chemist on to the next place. Now, we also get a teaser, Greg, for the next part of Double Feature. It's called Death Valley. We've only seen fragments of what to expect here, but apparently we don't know if there's going to be like some connection to what this first part, but from what the looks of it, it seems to live in a completely different world. Like, I mean, obviously it's all the AHS universe, but yeah, it's very, very different off the bat from that teaser that you see.
I have no idea where they're going to take this. Again, I keep saying it earlier, and I keep forgetting his name, Ed Wood, but this feels like it's not going to be a straight-up monster of the week or just alien. I feel like there's going to be a twist here on this, and I just don't know where it is yet. Again, it could be this could be the script of one of our fallen characters from Red Tide. It could be Harry's script. It could be, again, anyone else's. It could be something from, like a short story from Belle, for all we know. It could be any story. There will be a tie-in. I know that much. There's going to be some kind of tie-in between the two. But from what we saw in these trailers, it's all over the place, and I can't really I don't know if this is all just from like one episode. We're seeing just footage from like the Eisenhower stuff. All of this can be from one thing, or completely be its own episode contained, where it's all black and white, and then the other stuff that we see with a lot of characters and casts that we saw in stories. Which I don't know if they're going to put stories into play here either. I think that's just a coincidence for, timing, actors, and again, the pandemic. But with that said, it's all game. We don't know where they're going with it.
Yeah, I would love the tie-in that this second half of the season is a piece of someone's work, like one of the writers. This is their story. That'd be great. That'd be a great way. Just like that's the connection. That's it. Nothing else to investigate or examine. Just like that's the connection.
Nice and sweet.
What we do know is this. Yeah. What we do know that with this first episode, episode 7 of Death Valley, is titled "Take Me to Your Leader." Now, the synopsis on IMDb reads: a group of college students on a camping trip are swept up in a horrifying and deadly conspiracy decades in the making. So it sounds like way back in the day, hence the black and white footage. It's kind of a period representation of what's going on here, and it's basically going to show like these kids probably coming in contact with the first aliens that were on Earth, and in the desert somewhere, and then maybe years later, decades later, then the U.S. government has to kind of deal with this, and that's why you see Eisenhower. We also get the First Lady, played by Sarah Paulson. I also read in the IMDb that Amelia Earhart is actually involved, which is played by Lily Rabe. So I think her disappearance, it's obvious that her disappearance will be connected to the aliens way back in the late 1930s, I believe. So all that's going to kind of like come to a head, and then introduce aliens, which we've been waiting for quite some time. And I think that Ryan Murphy's been really hesitant on how to kind of tell the alien story in American Horror Story, but it seems like we're going to get quite a bit of it here.
So you think this is just straight up a alien story, and we're going just back in time, back to the, we're going to just have a time jump, black and white, and come back? I'm just I have a lot of pause there. But
yeah, no, I agree with you. I do have reservations. I don't think nothing's straightforward when it comes to American Horror Story, right?
Nope.
It won't just be like a fire in the sky abduction story. It won't be like that. It'll have to have some type of twist. They love like going into like historical events and kind of just like tweaking it and saying, oh, this is the reason why, to explain something that crazy happened. We've seen this in countless seasons. Yep. So I think that they're going to send a tie-in and make some of their own kind of just ridiculous, over-the-top, fun explanations in the AHS universe for real life historical events. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of time jumping around. We'll go back to the 30s, 50s, 70s, 80s, who knows, maybe present day, and kind of get like this huge, like it says, decades in the making conspiracy and alien abduction story and experiments that they've been done, secretive experiments that the U.S. government's been doing. But there's also going to be like some crazy twist with things that we won't be expecting. All
right, everyone, that's it for us over here. Now, this is a bit weird, but this isn't the end. Again, this is only the end of this is only the end for Red Tide, and we'll be back next week for the premiere of Death Valley. And we have so many questions, but we're gonna hold out until next week, and hopefully they'll be answered. I can't wait to see what happens next. And everyone, stay safe.
I can't wait.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Aliens! Aliens!
Finally, we get aliens, I think.
Finally, aliens!